Not always done. So this is a very, very important day for Vermont, and hopefully it has legs and travels to other states quickly. Sarah Wool, I want to thank you. The speaker series is fantastic, and this is another great day in the speaker series. Where's Sarah? Yay, Sarah! Of course, as always, I want to welcome and thank all my residents and my beautiful wife, Beth. It's our pleasure to have you here today. Sarah said, I may make a mistake, so you shouldn't introduce the governor. You need to get somebody more articulate than you introduce the governor. So I asked Carl, by the way, I did finally beat him in chess, I'm now 1-32. I think this is a week. I asked Mr. Eicher if he would do me the honor of introducing our governor, because I know he'll do a better job than ours. Carl, I'd like to go.
He set me up to do a better job than he. Good afternoon.
Hello. Good afternoon.
I've been told when you make introductions, the length is inversely proportional to the well-known person that you're introducing. You know, like for the president, you say, Mr. President, that's it. For the governor, you have to go a little more. You gotta add another 3 or 4 words. So I'll make it short, but just a little bit. Our speaker today is a native of Vermont. He's a graduate of Wesleyan University. And I find this hard to believe, but he is the 81st governor of Vermont. While we're here to listen to what he has to say to us today, there's also another motive for being here. We're honored as part of the lodge to have the bill H-413 signed into law this afternoon before the governor leaves. This bill is to protect seniors from exploitation, from abuse, from neglect, and there's a few legislators here also today who will be involved with the signing or speaking of this particular bill. So we will hear more about it. With that said, I've already said more than what I expected to because of the importance of the next speaker, our Governor Peter Shumlin.
Thank you so much, Carl. If we'd known you were that good at doing introductions, we'd have had to do President Obama. Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be at the lodges. I want to thank, first of all, our hosts, Greg and Beth, for creating this extraordinary standard of living. And, you know, I have said many times that my goal as governor is to ensure with my team and with the legislature that Vermont is the best place in the country to grow older. And I think we're making progress, but thanks to the good work of Beth and Greg and many others who make this community possible, congratulations, it's an honor to be here. I want to introduce some of the cast of characters that are up here, and I'm just going to do it in order of where they are, maybe starting way over. I'm going to introduce those that I can do off the top of my head. Susan Wary, my commissioner, thank you so much for being here. Just stand up so they know who you are. There we go. Representative Bill Lipper chairs the Judiciary Committee in the House and has worked hard on this bill. Thank you, Bill. Representative Maxine Brad is the sponsor of this bill and wouldn't rest until she got to the place where the governor was going to sign it. Thank you, Maxine. General Bill Sorrell has been dogged in his pursuit of the injustice that led to this bill in his office. So thank you, Bill Sorrell. I don't need to introduce your representative who does extraordinary work in the legislature for you. She represents this district. Joan Letts, thank you for your great work. And we have two two members of Chittenden County Senate team who worked very hard for seniors over the years and for this bill. The first is Senator Sally Fox. Thank you for joining us today. And the second is Senator Ginny Lyons, who chairs the Natural Resource Committee in the Senate and has worked hard for this moment. So thank you. I also want to recognize one of my friends from Windham County before he moved out of Vermont, moved to Chittenden County, Paul Mendelson, who chairs the Cove Board, I believe, correct?
I'm just a representative.
You're just representing Cove. Thank you so much for everything you're doing this evening. Mostly to Sarah Wool from the Lodge, who helped organize this event. Where's Sarah? Thank you so much. Let's give her a hand. And the two people I really want to recognize, in addition to the many organizations that make this moment possible, the network of agencies and nonprofits that have investigated and prevented abuse of seniors over the years, who support successful aging, the community of Vermont elders. Is Michael Surrock in here? No. Sally will not come. He said he was coming. If you don't know now, Sally and Michael have a relationship. They're married. So, but Michael's done great work on this bill as well. This is where we are, and I want to mention a little bit about why we're here today. This bill that we're going to sign today, H.R. 413, is a bill that creates a civil action against those who neglect or exploit a vulnerable adult. This bill will hold nursing homes, residential care facilities, owners and operators accountable for allowing patterns of abuse, neglect, and exploitation to exist in their facilities in the state of Vermont. We're led here today by a very sad story, and occasionally we can turn tragedy into some opportunity. We've had a little experience of that with Irene and spring floods, trying to take really tough circumstances and turn them into things that we can make better for Vermonters in the future. But I don't think there's any better example than what drove this bill, and it is the story of Daniel Wright and the journey of his two daughters, Susie Petrie and Gloria Law, who, if they're here, they are, I think, will stand up, that'd be great. Where are they? Thank you so much. Their story and their journey to this moment started when their dad, Daniel, who had only been in their nursing home in Vermont for 10 days, was assaulted numerous times by another resident over a 10-day period after he was admitted to this nursing home. Prior to Mr. Wright's assaults, the nursing home had documented the assaulted resident's extensive history of assaulting other residents and staff in that facility. None of the prior assaults upon residents had been reported as required by both state and federal law. They were covered up. The nursing home had taken no steps to protect its residents and gave no special orders for supervisors so that other residents wouldn't be harmed. The attacks on Daniel Wright were so severe that he died a few days after the attacks. On the day of the assaults, nursing staff failed to take Mr. Wright's vital signs and failed to notify the physicians of the assaults that he had endured. After his death, they failed to notify the medical examiner. All the violations were violations of existing state and federal law. The Attorney General's office, under the evil leadership of Bill Sorrell, investigated the case, and it was eventually resolved civilly. Although we had adequate criminal laws that applied to this type of abuse, neglect, and exploitation, we did not have specific civil remedies for these types of egregious and tragic cases. This law will make it easier for our office to bring civil actions to vindicate the rights of vulnerable adults such as Daniel Wright. So I just want to say to Susie and to Gloria, for which I know this has been a long and painful journey, we thank you for your courage. We thank you for your stick-to nature, the great trait of Vermonters. And we thank you for helping us to finally get it right for all Vermont seniors. On that note, I'm going to sign the bill, and then we're going to hear from some of the folks who worked so hard to make this moment possible. Did I get that right, Drew? Yep. I'm well behaved so far? All right. Come around, Kate. Get out of your chair. Let's go with photo op. Come on, we need you right up here next to us. So here we go, Kate. Okay, you ready? We all be on the base all day long. And we read it 1 It's law. Thank you. So thank you so much, and I'm going to give these pens, and I am fiscally conservative, so they're cheap pens, but they work, to Susie and Lori. Susie and Lori for all your great work. Thank you. And I have 2 others that I'm going to give out. The first to Maxine Grad for working so hard on this bill. Thank you, Maxine. And the second one to Greg. Where's Greg? Or Beth, whoever wants to take it.
Both of us.
Come on up. For being the example of why this bill wouldn't be necessary if everybody operated like you do. So thank you so much.
Thank you for everybody's support.
So now, thank you so much. We're going to hear from some of the workers who worked so well. Who's have a seat for you? Come on. Bill, you're going to take over now. So now I want to give you, it's a great honor to introduce our Attorney General, who worked very hard and his team on this bill, Bill Sorrell. Thank you, Attorney General.
Well, I'm very happy to be here today for the signing of this bill into law. As the governor suggested, my office is primarily responsible for protecting elderly Vermonters who find themselves in nursing homes, assisted care living, or hospitals. And as our population ages, unfortunately, the numbers of these cases that we've been seeing over the years have been increasing. Way back in January of 1961, I was in the 8th grade and was very excited when in November of 1960, John Fitzgerald Kennedy was elected president of our country, and in January, a very snowy January, I went down to Washington for that inauguration, a trip I still remember in certain respects like it was yesterday. And President Kennedy was a hero to me before, as we all know, his life was cut short in November of 1963. But while he was president, President Kennedy said, "A society's quality and durability can best be measured by the respect and care given its elder citizens. and I think what the President said we take seriously here in Vermont. But as the Governor mentioned, that in 2005, the legislature responded to our requests and imposed specific criminal penalties for the abuse, neglect, and exploitation of a vulnerable adult. But then when the tragic death of Daniel Wright took place, our office found that we didn't really have the tools necessary in terms of civil penalties to try to address the totally inadequate protection and care of Mr. Wright that he received during his 10 days in that nursing home. And so, with the great help of many Vermonters, and most particularly the sponsor of H413, Maxine Bragg, we were able, with the help of many others, to convince the legislature that our office should have another arrow in the quiver, if you will, of civil remedies, the ability to obtain civil penalties against an individual or a facility that is actually responsible for, perpetrates, or it can be held accountable for the abuse, neglect, or exploitation of a vulnerable adult. So now that this bill becomes law, and as more of our population ages, and we have more Vermonters in nursing homes and assisted care facilities, and as our vigilance for the kind of horrific treatment that Mr. Wright experienced, to avoid that here in the state, should those situations come to light, we will be able to respond. But this kind of treatment, what we need really is vigilance, not just on the part of our office and not just on the part of caregivers, but vigilance on the part of friends, neighbors, and family members of our senior citizens. Because in 2010, there was a study in New York State that found that during 1 year period, 76 out of 1,000 seniors were the victim of abuse or neglect. So nearly 1 in 10. But of that number, how many of those cases do you think came to light? Sadly, 1 in 57, or less than 2%. So the signing of this bill today is a great step. It's another arrow in the quiver for us. But it is really just a mini step. And the hard work to be done, the important work to be done, is for us all to take responsibilities for our brothers and our sisters, and to be vigilant and to bring any suspicions of abuse or neglect or exploitation to our attention. Thank you very much for letting me participate in this great event today.
And now, thank you, Attorney General Sorrell. Now I want to introduce to you the person who works hard to protect seniors every day in my administration, the Commissioner of Dial, Susan Weir. Commissioner Weir, come on.
Thank you.
Before, I want to apologize before the Commissioner speaks, but they never let me stay anywhere longer than 20 minutes anymore. Yeah. So they're going to give me the hook. But I'm going to ask Sarah, where's Sarah Heidi? Sarah, will you want to come up and just take over when Commissioner's done and introduce the rest of the speakers? Come on, we know you can do
Certainly.
that.
You're going to let me know who they are?
Well, I'm just standing here guessing, you know, like they don't, yeah, I'll give you my secret list. Ready to go. Okay. Commissioner Weir, take it away. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Governor. And thank you all for being here this afternoon to think through with us this whole problem about elder abuse. As the governor said, I am the commissioner of the Department of Disabilities, Aging, and Independent Living. And as I would always tell him, in my view, I have the best job in his administration. The mission of our department is, in fact, to make Vermont the best state in the nation in which to grow old or to live with a disability with dignity, respect, and independence. And in order for people to be able to live with dignity, respect, and independence, it's critically important that people feel safe. Safe in their homes, safe in their communities, safe in facilities. In my view, it's not enough for us to intervene when abuse, neglect, and exploitation have happened. It's equally important that we put all of our efforts into preventing abuse, neglect, and exploitation before it even occurs. And that requires all of us. Attorney General Sorrell anticipated this as well when he talked about the importance of family, friends, neighbors looking in on each other. Because in fact, one of the biggest risk factors for being a victim of abuse, neglect, or exploitation is isolation, is loneliness, is people not being aware and not being connected. And so it's critically important that we all join in that. The division of my department, Adult Protective Services, is one of the divisions, along with survey and certification, licensing and protection, that from a state perspective provides some of the protection. But we are joined in that by law enforcement, by the long-term care ombudsman office. We're joined in that by our Medicaid fraud unit. And this is a partnership kind of affair. This is something that we have to do together because we are all in this together. And my pledge to you is that our department, our Division of Licensing and Protection, will continue to do its part to vigorously investigate, to protect, and to join together with everyone for also preventing abuse, neglect, and exploitation, so that this is, in fact, and remains the best state in the nation in which to grow old, or to live with a disability, with dignity, respect, and independence. Thank you very much.
Forgive me if I get this wrong, since I was definitely put on the spot, but I'd like to call up Representative Maxine Grad, who was the sponsor behind this bill, followed by Joan Lennis, who would like to say a few words as well.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here with all of you today, and thank you so much for your support for this important issue. I want to especially thank Assistant... Is this better? How's this? Perfect. Better? Okay, great. I'll start over. As I was saying, it's an honor to be here with all of you, and thank you all for your support of this important issue. And I want to especially thank Assistant Attorney General Linda Purdy, who is here on my left. It was Linda that helped me understand why she needed this additional tool to effectively prosecute these egregious cases. And I also want to thank everybody here, and I'm sorry the governor left, but for holding this public bill signing. Public bill signings are an opportunity to educate people. They're educational opportunities to shed light on important issues. And it shows our commitment today to vulnerable adults, and it sends a loud public message that the abuse, neglect, and exploitation of vulnerable adults will not be tolerated by Vermont. And as leaders, it also gives us the opportunity to stand here together and to say that we will continue to work to enhance the public safety, the health, and the lives of some of our most cherished Vermonters. So thank you so much.
If Sarah thought the governor put her on the spot, when I come to Shelburne Bay and get to visit with all of you, it's a smaller crowd, and certainly much fewer of the media here. But I am Joan Lennis and the state representative for this area. You're all in my district, and I am very proud to have worked with the folks and voted yes for this bill, and welcome you all to Shelburne and to highlight the issue that we've spoken of this morning. So thank you, and I appreciate the lodge sponsoring us. Thanks.
And since the governor's not here to close, if we could open up the floor to any questions to all of you sitting here, would that be okay? Just a few, and then we'll wrap up and thank everyone for coming to sign this important bill. So if you have any questions, feel free to either come up or raise your hand and speak loudly, and perhaps someone sitting up here could answer those questions.
I'm interested in the state psychiatric hospital, and I've worked a number of years with the mentally ill. I'm interested in the state mental hospital. I've worked a number of years with the mentally ill. And so I wonder, is it going to be a central hospital, or are you going to have satellites? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I'm on the House Institutions and Corrections Committee, and our capital bill, bonded dollars, is what goes to pay for these facilities. And because of Irene, we have vacated Waterbury for the state hospital, not for state government, not for private business. The main Vermont State Hospital will be in Berlin. We're negotiating on 3 different parcels of land. The Brattleboro Retreat has increased their capacity and will take 20 crisis beds off. They'll be there. Rutland Regional Medical Center will also have beds, and those will be the 3 main crisis facilities. We are putting more money, more dollars into community services, so that perhaps an individual will be able to get the attention and services they need and not need to go to a state hospital. Perhaps when they come out of a state hospital, they'll need extra support, and we'll have that in the community. So it was a pretty intense conversation through this legislative session, but I'm very pleased with the 25-bed unit that we're proposing in Berlin, and hopefully once we sign on the land, it'll be a 3-year or shorter building cycle, and we'll have that facility. So a really important question, and one that we want to, as everybody said, with our aging population and our disabilities, our Vermonters with mental illness need just as much attention. And I think Irene got us to make a move that we haven't been able to in over 10 years for mental health. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Not a question, just a comment of congratulations to the people who filmed.
I'm sorry.
It's not a question, it's just a note of congratulations. I know how long it has taken. It's been a hard struggle to get.
Many before me and many will follow, but this has been an instrumental year. Thank you.
In the development of this bill were criminal sanctions examined, and if they were rejected, why were they?
Actually, the legislature took up the issue of criminal sanctions for neglected, abused, or exploited vulnerable citizens in 2005. So we have the criminal sanctions and have had them in place. But what we found in the situation of Mr. Wright's death, where the institution, first of all, the individual who was responsible could not be prosecuted criminally because of his physical and mental state, but issues dealing with the nursing home in which so many state and federal laws were violated, leading to Mr. Wright's death and following Mr. Wright's death, we felt that the criminal sanctions weren't directly applicable, and so that's when my Assistant Attorney General, Linda Purdy, started working with Representative Grad, leading to this statute, which gives us civil penalties potentially against individuals or facilities, so that should we have another situation, unfortunately, like Mr. Wright's situation, and just as an aside, we had 2 deaths in nursing homes in Vermont this past year that have been ruled homicides. So not totally isolated incidents, but going forward, we will now have both the possibility of criminal penalties in appropriate cases and civil penalties in appropriate cases. So we're pleased to have the flexibility to go either of those ways.
On behalf of my dad and my family, I just can't tell you how much we appreciate all you have done and your perseverance in this. And it's been a long time, and I thought that perhaps nothing would come of this. Thank you.
Can't hear it either.
Hi, my question is not about this particular bill. I'm interested in the Death with Dignity bill. I think all the people that are living in here now think about their own mortality.
Anyone that would be comfortable speaking to that bill? Yes? Oh. We'll take one more question after this.
Maggie, just you're interested in learning more about the Death with Dignity bill, or anything specifics?
I'm interested in possibility of passing a bill like that.
Thank you. I'm going to share this response with Senator Fox. I'm Senator Jenny Lyons, and in the past I have sponsored the Death with Dignity bill, end-of-life choices, and will continue to do that. This is one of those issues that is extremely controversial, as you know, and it divides us right down the middle. So it is not unusual for something of this nature to take a long period of time to discuss, and for folks to feel comfortable with that option available, having an option available for people at end of life when they're extremely ill. So will the bill pass is something that I cannot answer. I will continue to support it, and I will continue to encourage people to understand.
Do you want this podium, DJ, facing your mom or the camera?
Careful how you answer that question.
I'll leave now.
Yeah.
I got an award back in 7.
I turned it. He didn't turn it. I turned it. He doesn't have the profile issues that I have. Hey, thanks so much. Thanks so much for joining us. And we have with us today a number of legislators, law enforcement folks, folks from PJ's office, and people from the court system who are working hard with us to win the war on recidivism, reduce the number of dollars that Vermonters are spending on prisons, and instead prevent crime and make our streets safer as a result. As you know, this is one of the great challenges that Vermont faces. We've seen our corrections budget double, that is double in the last decade. We now are spending more on prisons than we are on investments in higher education for Vermonters. And it has been a part of my administration in partnership with prosecutors, law enforcement, judicial branch of government, as well as mental health agencies and other prevention efforts to reduce the number of people that we put in prison and instead make our state safer by ensuring that we get it right the first time. Back in 2010, when I was president of the Senate, Prosecutor T.J. Donovan came to me as the state's attorney of the largest county in the state of Vermont. And he came with Mary Alice McKenzie, who at that time and currently is still the executive director of the Boys and Girls Club here in Burlington. And their message was twofold. They said, Governor, if you want to do things as a Senate president, tough times, to reduce the amount of crime we have on our streets, to ensure that we stop spending $54,000 a year to lock up prisoners who we could rehabilitate before they get there, we have an idea. We have an idea. And the idea was a simple one. Use Chittenden County and the court system here as a test case. Invest the dollars to ensure that we have in place the coordination of existing providers to ensure that multiple offenders don't end up back in prison, but we get them to the root cause of what is creating the crime, which we all know is often drug and alcohol addiction, substance abuse, and mental health challenges. Those are the things that are driving crime in Vermont. So what T.J. Donovan said to me, along with Mary Alice McKenzie at that time, was let's do a simple concept. Let's work together with our partners in the legislature, and I know Chair of the Judiciary Committee, Bill Lippert, is here, as well as Susie Wizawati, who's worked very hard on this. We have the mayor here today, who's very supportive, and others in the law enforcement community, legislative community. So let's create this position and try it out. And here are the results. They hired Erica. Since this program went into place, 624 offenders with 833 charges have been diverted from our corrections system. 624 offenders. That's a huge number. 142 individuals have open cases as of today's date. Of those 482 offenders whose cases are complete, 416 individuals in Vermont have completed agreed upon programs with an 86% success rate. 86%. Now we know that for nonviolent offenders, people who are mostly addicted to drugs and alcohol and other substance abuse, that when they serve their time and are then released from prison after their time is up, 60% of them return to prison within 3 years at another $54,000 a year. So one of the reasons that we're reducing correction spending in Vermont is because of the extraordinary success of this program that was hatched and created by the vision and leadership of T.J. Donovan and Mary Alice McKenzie and other providers here in Chittenden County. There are a lot of partners involved with this. I want to acknowledge the Burlington Community Justice Center, Spectrum Youth and Family Services, the Howard Center, the Lund Center, the Turning Point Center, and Mercy Connections, all of whom are partners, along with community health centers, COPS, who we know does an extraordinary job with homeless people, Vermont Works for Women, Valley Vista, and Multiple Leaf Farms. But this partnership has been an extraordinary success. It has now received national attention. I stand next to the award that was given to T.J. Donovan last week at a conference of the Association of Prosecuting Attorneys from across America. They choose 3 recipients from across this nation who have exemplified extraordinary leadership in innovative community engagement awards and recognized T.J.'s success, T.J. Donovan's success, along with the partners here, in making this demonstration project work. As governor, I want to see it applied to every courthouse in Vermont. But it's a great honor to be here today to recognize the innovative leadership of State's Attorney T.J. Donovan, of his partners, of their commitment to community engagement and public safety in Vermont. That's what the Association of Prosecuting Attorneys recognized in their award. I keep saying Size doesn't matter, the award does. And I now turn it over to the person who made it happen, TJ Donovan.
As the governor said, this is a big award, a big honor, but a small award. Listen, very briefly, this is about two things. This is about enhancing public safety for all our citizens in Chittenden County, but it's also about saving taxpayer dollars. We're doing the right thing in Chittenden County, and I hope it can go across the state. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Chief Mike Sherling, who's not here today, for his leadership on this issue. I know Deputy Chief Andy Higley is here, who was instrumental in bringing this program to fruition. You don't do this without partnerships, not only with community groups, but law enforcement. So not only do I want to thank Chief Sherling, I want to thank Chief Trevor Whipple from the South Burlington Police Department, as well as Chief Steve McQueen from the Winooski Police Department. And this is what makes Vermont great. We get together, we figure out, we come up with ideas, and we have the relationships to go to our legislators like Chairman Lipper, Representative Wizawati, Governor Shumlin, also Senator Dick Sears, Chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and we say, hey, we got a great idea. Would you give us some startup money to try this? Governor Shumlin's leadership, his vision, gave us the license to try new things. Without that leadership, without that license to experiment, this never would have gotten off the ground. So Governor, thank you. I'm proud that Mayor Weinberger is here. During the campaign, he spoke very often about innovative policies. He spoke about cost savings. He spoke about best practices. I believe this is a best practice. I believe it should be implemented across this state. I want to thank all the community partners, and I'd like to turn it over to Mayor Weinberger.
Well, thank you, and congratulations, TJ, and really the whole team that's up here. I have been lucky, really quite fortunate to get to a window into the success that's represented here today in a couple capacities. As a private citizen, as a board member of the Turning Point Center, I really watched this program start to take hold and grow, and now in my 5 weeks as mayor, I've had the pleasure of working with Karen Vastine and the Community Justice Center and seeing another side of this. And I think that really speaks to the difficulty of what you have pulled off here today. There are an enormous number of partners involved in making this program work, and that's not easy to do. And it's a much-deserved award that it's come as far as it has. And I think, as TJ put it, this is a best practice, something for the whole state to look to. It's also, I think, not the end of the story. This award comes at a great time, bringing attention to an urgent need in our community. We need, as a city, to continue to build on this success and make sure that we continue to bring the resources to bear, which will take the help of the governor in the years ahead, to make sure that groups like the Turning Point Center, all the groups that are represented here today, to continue to get the resources they need to make the kind of small investments that save lives, change lives, turn them around, and over the long haul, save an enormous amount of money for the taxpayer. So I certainly congratulate everyone that's here, and I'm excited to do what I can as mayor to support this going forward from here. So thank you.
Many people have played a part in this success, but one person comes in every day and pulls us off. Still don't know how she does it. That's Erica Smart, and I just wanted to acknowledge Erica and ask her to come up and say a few words.
Thank you. Well, I didn't prepare any formal comments. I want to thank TJ. I think it goes without saying that it's a political risk to implement a program like this. As an elected official, it takes foresight to look down the road and decide what you want to see in a few years, what the end game should be, and to just have the courage to bring in the community to the courthouse, something that hasn't happened before. And it happens in very few jurisdictions around the country, which is why this award is so important. So the credit really goes to him for having the foresight and the courage to do something like this, and I think we're going to see great success.
Any questions?
If you have questions, TJ will take it.
Governor, is this a tacit endorsement?
Test endorsement of what, the program? Yes.
Mr. Donovan's run?
You know, as you know, I'm staying out of any primaries among Democrats. I can tell you that TJ has been an extraordinary prosecutor for Vermont and has really been an extraordinary leader. So we're here today to celebrate this national award, to celebrate the success of a program that's reducing recidivism. But in terms of the primary, we'll get involved in election politics as soon as the primary is completed. And I just might make the point, I don't know, you've been to a few press conferences today, but I should point out that the current Attorney General has been at 2 of the press conferences today. So, you know, one of the joys of being governor is we have a lot of friends. We hope.
What's the cost of treatment for those avoiding the court system?
Yeah, thank you. You know,
This is softball. Go ahead, hit the softball.
as I said, it makes sense. Roughly $180 a day, 1 day in jail in Vermont. Day in treatment, $95. The thing about jail is this: you're gonna get out. It makes sense not only in terms of public safety, addressing that root cause. Most of the cases that come in here as a result of substance abuse. We're seeing it as a result of opiate addiction. We're seeing it as a result of alcohol. And we need to be proactive. We need to have interventions, and we can do that, I think, not only more effectively in terms of public safety, but more effectively in terms of our tax dollars, how we spend them by sending people to treatment as opposed to jail. I got no problem sending people to jail. Our jails are full. People who deserve to go to jail, we do it every single day. People who need help, we get them help. That's what this program's about, and it makes sense in terms of saving taxpayer dollars.
What are some elements that might disqualify someone from consideration for the program?
You know, our standard's very simple. It's got to pass a straight face test on the street. No sex, no guns, no weapons, no domestic violence, nothing in terms of burglaries, robberies. This is about people who are writing bad checks, who are stealing in order to feed their drug habit. These are things that when you talk to people out in the street, they're going to support, because addiction does not discriminate. It touches every single person in this state across socioeconomic lines.
Are there any demographics? I mean, is it usually younger people if you're working with
You know, in terms of the demographic, I think it crosses age. I will say this, most of the people we see in this courthouse, and I know you're aware of this by walking through the courthouse, are poor people. I think, as I said, you know, substance abuse, mental illness does not discriminate. Poverty does. The people that have those interventions earlier in time often come from family of resources. The poor don't have that opportunity many times. That intervention increasingly is coming through the criminal justice system. You look at the number of people who are incarcerated with mental illness, 80% of the women in this state who are incarcerated receive mental health treatment while incarcerated. We can do a better job out in the community, in my opinion. This is what this program is trying to do.
Those who don't succeed, can they have another shot?
No. You don't succeed, you're coming back to the regular docket. There has to be accountability. You know, when we talk about best practices, this is about a system of incentives and sanctions. We want to give people an opportunity to be successful, but we also have to maintain the integrity of the court system.
You know, one of the compelling things that drove me to support this, and I think other legislators back in 2010, was the simple notion that, as TJ just mentioned, you are talking about folks who are addicted to drugs, to alcohol, have substance abuse challenges, have mental health challenges in many cases, but often are living in poverty, and therefore they often don't know how to navigate the system. So the period between being charged and actually going forward to prosecution is a critical time. It can take 6, 8, 10 weeks sometimes. And to be able to have the intervention, get them to the place they need to go, can make the difference between continued tragedy or success in moving them to become productive members of society again. The sooner we can get folks who are addicted to drugs and alcohol, substance abuse, get them back into the workforce, make them productive members of society, it's a win for them, it's a win for the state budget, and it's a win for humanity.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.